The beauty and diversity of Door County's natural surroundings are well known around the world, from its rugged shoreline bluffs to its vast inland forests to the ubiquitous and ever-changing wetlands. Door County presents a perfect palette for the array of wildlife and plant life that abound here. A palette that encompasses almost 500 square miles of landmass and over 300 miles of shoreline. Every inch of it fascinating and unique in its own right, but impossible to grasp as a whole at a glance. So, when the Door County Historical Museum sought to present Door County's natural beauty and diversity to the public, they were faced with a challenge. A diorama seemed to be the obvious choice, but the real challenges lie ahead as the museum faced the prospect of compressing several hundred square miles of land, water, flora and fauna, and 4 seasons into an area of a couple of hundred square feet. A diorama is a seemingly simple blend of 2-dimensional media with 3-dimensional objects to make them appear as one. Easier said than done. Viewing angles, perspective, dimensional scale, lighting, and a certain artistic touch all contribute to making the diorama either a magical illusion or simply a collection of objects placed against a mural. Creating a diorama of the scale envisioned by the museum would normally require a team consisting of a designer, multi-trade craftsmen, multimedia artists, naturalists, and taxidermists. Not to mention a budget that would make museums many times the size blush.
We wanted to be able to show the visitors up close what the natural beauty of Door County is. And we heard about Mike and decided eventually that we wanted to hire him. And he presented us with this little model, and we thought, well, he could probably do a pretty decent job because we knew he was a wonderful taxidermist. We didn't know anything about the rest of his skills.
A love of nature and Door County's geography, coupled with a wide range of self-taught skills, made Mike Orthober the perfect choice for the job. As an award-winning taxidermist, Mike had established a national reputation for his unique settings and attention to detail. But a job of this size and scope would demand of him skills well beyond taxidermy, involving new materials and new technologies, and maybe, most importantly, the ability to put them all together to create a concise and accurate snapshot of Door County's rich natural environment.
You know, I needed to have the 4 seasons in it because the birds, of course, some migrate away in the summer and some come here in the winter and migrate from further north and come here in the winter. So I needed to have the seasons to have the birds in the proper seasons. I wanted to have a wetland habitat, a woodland habitat, and a field type of habitat. So I had the general habitats that we have here so that I could put the birds and animals in the habitat that they normally are in. And of course I wanted to have all this in this one exhibit, so I made all 4 seasons in the exhibit. The tree goes from spring to summer to fall to winter. It's all got the seasons so I can have all the birds and animals in the right season. I looked at the area that I had, I visualized the seasons, I visualized the shape of this railing basically that would use the space the most where people could walk in and out. And when I had that idea in my head, I had to present it to the museum, and I thought the best way to do that would be to make a little quick model of the room. So here I made this model, and it's sort of a scale model, the size of the room. And I had my idea of making the railing coming out into a peninsula and going back, the wetland on that side, the forest in the back, and the meadow in the front, and the stone fence, which Door County has a lot of in there to tell about that, and the basic concept of the mural in the back, just the forest in the center and the wetland on that side and the field on this side. And of course this is winter, fall, summer, and then spring is over here in the wetland.
So we hired Mike, and we didn't really know much about him, but he came with his little model, and we looked at it and we thought, okay, we know he's a world-class taxidermist. He can probably do the rest of the stuff okay. Now, you've got to understand that he did say that in 6 months he would have it ready for the public to view. And I remember standing there watching him, and he was up there on a ladder with a little bitty brush and house paint. He's painting away, and I'm thinking it is never ever going to happen in 6 months. But it did turn out to be a blessing in disguise because he was able to interact with the public, which was a wonderful thing because it got the people really interested in the creation of the diorama and got them coming back year after year to see what he was doing and how he progressed. He is the most meticulous human being I have ever met, and he's also one of the slowest.
As a hunter, fisherman, and professional taxidermist, the wildlife aspect of the diorama was a natural for Mike. Taxidermy is an art form often misunderstood. The archaic term of stuffing an animal implies a simple process of removing the innards and replacing them with, well, stuffing.
Take the skin off the animal and preserve it, and then you have to make a mannequin of the animal's body that fits the skin. Plus it has to be able to look like the animal when it's finished. So if you don't know where the muscles are and the different shapes, the way the fins work, all these different things, the way the head is attached to the body, a lot of people mount fish and the head is attached wrong. It doesn't look like the fish species that it's supposed to be.
Mike is almost religious about being faithful to the animal he is working with.
I feel I have a great respect for the animals. I can't make the animal look bad. It's just not fair. It's not fair because the thing died to be mounted. It should look nice when it's done.
Any part of the animal that is unable to be preserved due to its size or delicate makeup must be fabricated out of synthetic material and size and color matched to the particular animal. And finally comes the painstaking detail work, getting feathers to lay just right, making sure the color on the fish has just the right translucency, and putting the little bumps on the nose of the elk. These are the details that you probably aren't going to notice until they're not there. By the way, all the animals you see in the exhibit have been obtained either through Department of Natural Resource salvage permits, meaning they were roadkill or otherwise accidentally killed, or they came from game farms or through legal hunting. Beyond the actual mounting of the animals, it was imperative that they be placed in their proper habitat, which meant that plant life had to be either brought in from the wild or fabricated. Certainly the most prominent plant in the exhibit is the beech tree. The weight and physical challenge of getting a tree with a 20-foot crown through a 3-foot door made it an easy decision to fabricate one from scratch. The trunk of the tree was formed around a plywood box frame. This was then covered with foam board to provide a surface that was easily shaped into the form of the tree trunk. Branches were formed by attaching pipes to the trunk and covering them with foam, similar to the trunk. The smaller branches and twigs were simply borrowed from other living beech trees. The surface of the bark was replicated by taking a rubber mold of a real beech tree trunk and pressing it into wet cement covering the foam. The final touches were added by painstakingly painting the natural colors onto the bark. Of course, no tree is complete without leaves. The leaves on the tree, over 4,500 of them, are all hand-fabricated and hand-painted. Even though they all come from a limited number of molds, using the same materials, every one of them is as individual as the leaves produced by Mother Nature, reflecting the various seasons presented in the diorama. And, of course, no exhibit of Door County would be complete without an abundance of our most prolific commodity, rocks. At first glance, rocks shouldn't be a problem until the structural realities of the museum are considered. The rock fence line would weigh much more than the floor structure could support, and the cave, well, it's just not too easy to dismantle and import a natural limestone cave. So, fabrication was, again, the answer. Rubber molds were cast from 14 different rocks. A white casting resin is poured into the mold to form a thin outer shell. The molds were then filled with a liquid urethane foam and left to expand and harden into the shape of the rock. The rubber mold is removed and the foam rock painted to its natural rugged beauty. The limestone cave was constructed of foam blocks and carved, then covered with paper mache and painted into the weathered striations that Door County's beloved limestone is known for. Providing a background for all this is a mural depicting not only the wide-ranging land and waterscapes of Door County, but the 4 seasons that keep them changing day by day and evolving century by century. like the environment it wishes to emulate. The Door County Historical Museum's nature diorama is an evolutionary process itself. Since its inception in 1997, it has evolved painstakingly and lovingly into one of the finest examples of the art form in the Midwest.
We've had people that are here every single year to note the differences of what's been added, and that of course brought us business, but it inspired Mike, I think, to keep working on it and to keep improving. And we've had people that came from as far away as Washington, D.C., the Smithsonian. We had someone come in here one time saying this is as good as anything that we've got in Washington, D.C. This is as good a diorama as we've ever seen anywhere.
But just like nature, our diorama continues to evolve.
Although it was not our plan, it turned out that people were as interested in the process, as interested in watching Mike work, as they were in the end product. So this is going to be an ongoing thing. We're always going to be adding animals. He plans to add more plant life. So there will always be something for someone to come back in the future and see that there's something new and different.
Please take your time in enjoying Seasons of Life. But don't forget that it's just a part of all the exhibits and treasures you'll find at the Door County Historical Museum, a museum referred to by the Chicago Tribune as the best small museum in the Midwest. We think you'll agree.